Well, today we have a Kawasaki 636 Ninja ZX636 we're going to part out. Bought this from Copart. It's a 2013. We paid $3,200 out the door. And so, you know, a little bit more than I thought I should have had to pay, but apparently somebody else wanted it and I really wanted it, so. But it's really not that bad a condition. So to start off, it has the Yoshimura Undertale Kit, straight pipe exhaust. Man, that thing, this is the loudest bike I think I've ever ridden. Super clean. You look in here and the engine is immaculate, so this probably has never seen rain. Couple scratches on the fairing, so like maybe it flopped over on this side, but didn't really do much damage. You can see this foot peg is not bad. Little nick on the front brake. Really, the right side's not bad. The spot right there. Most of the damage was to the left. So, you know, the fairing's busted up. Rash there. Headlights or turn signals broke. The front or the left handlebar was snapped off. I bolted this one off of an older model on here just to test ride it. Bolted right up, but the angle's a little off. The foot peg was broken off. I improvised by making this. It was enough to take it for a test ride. I wouldn't ride it very far like that, but enough to take it around the block. But really, you got a foot peg, a handlebar, and what? Let's say on the high end, $800 worth of fairing. So for less than $1,000, you could put into this. I should say, here's a broken tail, right tail fairing. But for less than $1,000 in parts, that's if you make it 100% OEM beautiful, and $3,200, so $4,200 bike. And what, this thing blue books out at $7,200, so I mean, geez, it's a pretty good value, you know. Or you can buy a turnkey one and not do anything to it and pay top dollar. So we're gonna tear it down for parts. You guys can check me out tearing it down. I'll film the whole thing. So let's get started. Okay, so now we need to put it on motorcycle stands, the front and the back. Okay, next, so we got it on stands. Always looks better that way. Next, we're going to take the side fairings off, the lower and the mid fairing, both sides. There's a little tip on the fairing. So to get your mid fairings off, there's a bolt hidden under this panel right down in there that is bolted that you gotta take off. Hard to find. Well, that wasn't easy, but we got the side fairing off. Let's pull the seats, rear seat, and the tail fairing off. Next, we'll drain the gas tank, drain the radiator, suck the oil out of the front brake system, and suck the oil out of the rear brake system. I like to use this Harbor Freight tool, suck the oil out of the calipers. Of course, it's dripping right now. Put that on. Pull the trigger. Next, we're going to pull the tank. So we pull these two bolts. That lifts it up. We've got to disconnect the hose, the fuel line, and the power to the fuel pump. And then there's two bolts in the back and the tank comes off. Next, we're going to take the fuel pump off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. And then the pump slides out. Next, pull the gas cap. So you got 1, 2, 3, and then the whole cap comes off. Next, we're going to take the airbox off. So you've got one bolt there. You've got undo your clamp, and then there's clamps in here that you got to get off. You access it through here. Next, we're going to pull the spark plugs and do a compression check. So pull this out of the way. We're going to pull the coils out and pull the spark plugs out. So we installed the compression gauge and we got about 120 out of the first cylinder. One thing to note, always when you do compression check, hold your throttle all the way open. And make sure your secondaries, butterflies, all the way open also. But 120 on the first one. We'll go ahead and check the rest. So we got the spark plugs in. Now I'm going to go after this front fairing. The easiest way to get started is to pull these two. Pull these two. Pull the nose off. And then you can start taking the fairing piece off, the windshield, the dash, and unplug the harness. So now we got the front nose pulled off. We'll go after the front wheel and front brake calipers. So we'll start with the front fender. So we pull these two. Then we've got these to disconnect, both sides. Then the fender will slide out. Sometimes it's easier, so this won't slide out because of these. So the fender needs to just come down to clear the forks and then out. So let's pull the wheel. So we'll start with pulling the brake calipers. Pull these two, and the same on the other side. Alright, with the brake calipers gone, we'll pull the front wheel and pull the front axle. So loosen these two bolts. And then there's nothing over here. So loosen these two bolts, and then I have a special tool that spins that out. I'll show you. So this little guy, I picked it up on eBay. It's super cheap. It's like less than 20 bucks delivered to your door. And it solves all of your front axle problems. Just stick it in and then loosen the axle. Alright, axle's out on the ground. Now the front wheel slides out. Front fender. Pops out. So next, we're going to pull the front rotors. So loosen these. Sometimes you got to put heat on them to break the Loctite. I use a little propane torch, one of these, heat them up, and then break them free. Okay, we're going to start. We're going to take all this off. So we're going to loosen the clutch cable, pull the cable off, pull the grip off, which I think I can do right now because it's already cut. And there's 2 screws back here. This splits, and then pull it off. And these 2 screws pulls the clutch perch off. Alright, we're going to pull the bar end off, pull that bolt out, pull this off. These 2 screws splits this in half, and then the whole assembly slides off. These 2 screws splits this in half, this comes off. Unbolt that, your front brake line comes off, and then these 2 and the whole master cylinder comes off. So we are going to take the top triple clamp off and pull the ignition switch. So you loosen these bolts, 1, 2, take this one off. There's 2 bolts under here that hold the bar to the top of the triple clamp. Pulled this off. Ignition switch wire goes down in here and into this pack here. Alright, now you got this off. You unplugged this. You've got these tamper-proof bolts that got to come out. So I drill them and use an easy out extractor. You can use a left-handed bit. Sometimes that works, but usually not. Extractor set. Drill a hole, screw this in, screw it into there, and then spin them out. Well, don't buy cheap drill bits. I busted 2, punched my finger. Drilling wasn't going well, so I used a die grinder, ground the head off. I'll do that to this one. Once you grind the heads off, then you can pull this up, take vice grips, maybe take a little heat to get rid of the Loctite vice grips and spin these out. Alright, let's go after the throttle body next. So you got to undo all of your injector wires. Take these off. Undo all your plugs right there. And then there is little clamps down in there that hold the throttle body down. So you got to loosen those and pull those off. And then the throttle body will pop out. Next, let's pull the Undertale Kit off. Looks like we got 4 bolts right there. And then this should pop off. Let's pull the tail light. Looks like there's a bolt there and a bolt there. And that might get it off. I'm going to pull the battery, take the 2 pulls off, take the rubber strap out. Pull the battery out. We're going to take the servo out. These 2 screws, pull it out. Looks like somebody's cut the cables, so do that next. Next, we're going to pull the ECU. Just slides up off these 2 pegs and pop all the plugs off. And this plug here for the relay. Okay, let's go after the starter relay, which is under the gas tank. So we're gonna slide this out of these little rubber grommets, and then we're gonna pop this cover off. And there's 2 bolts there, and this clip or this harness. Pop this harness off, and then this comes out. All right, I want to pull the harness. All this, I'm going to pull it through up into here. I'm going to put some towels in the intake ports. We're going to pull the passenger seat latch. This is a cover here. It's a plastic cover. You just pry it in there, pop it off. That gets you to the 2 screws. And then this hole comes off. Next, we're going to pull the passenger foot pegs. So 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there, and we got a bolt here for the exhaust. Next, we want to pull the radiator. So we'll pull this horn mount right there. There's a bolt underneath that there. We're going to pull this radiator hose. There's a bolt down here. We'll pull that one. You got a bolt here. Pull that one. And radiator hose. And we'll pull the reservoir off also. And drain the oil. I haven't done that yet. So pop that off and drain the oil. Alright, we'll pull the muffler, unbolt this, and slide unbolt here and undo this clamp. Slide this off. Then we'll undo the header, take all these bolts off, and then drop the header down. Alright, we're going to pull the left gear or foot peg gear shift lever off. So undo this bolt, these 2 bolts, and that slides off. Now let's pull the fender. Got 1 bolt there, there, there. Fender pops off. We'll also pull the chain guard. You got 1 there. You got a little push pin in there and a bolt there. So I'm going to pull the chain. Here's the master link. And I'm going to grind these pins off and punch the chain out and pull the chain off. So something like this. Better use both hands. So there's the chain. Sprocket's not in bad shape. I'm going to try and sell the chain sprocket as a set. So I'm going to pull the front sprocket off. So I'm going to pull 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts and pull that cover off. Now take a screwdriver and you bend this tab flat, bend it back, and I take an impact gun with it in neutral and just bump that nut right off. Comes right off. Next, we'll go off to the right foot peg. So we're going to pull the brake reservoir, this bolt that holds the rear brake hose on, and then there should be a micro switch for the brake light. It's around here somewhere, this one, so we'll have to chase that wire. It goes probably up in there. And then these 2 bolts, and then this will come off. So I got the left foot peg off, or the mount. Now I want to pull the rear brake master cylinder off. So I'm going to pull these 2 bolts. I'm going to pull this pin. There's a cotter key. Take that out and the pin slides out. Then your whole master cylinder comes off. Okay, we're going to pull the rear brake caliper. So we'll remove this bolt for the hose, then this bolt, and then you got to unscrew right there, and then the caliper pops off. You don't, this is just a cover. Well, let's pull the rear wheel to get that finished backing that out. So you come over here, super easy, pull the cotter pin, undo the nut, slide the axle out, and the wheel comes out. So I'm going to pull the rear rotor, sell those separately. 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. May need heat. If it gets too tough, try heat to break the Loctite. Then I'm going to sell the rear sprocket, so I'm going to pull it off. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, and it pops off. Okay, so on this, we're getting really close to pulling the engine. As you can see, we're really close. So I want to pull the wiring harness, pull it out, and then I want to go after this ABS pump. So we'll see what it looks like as I dig deeper. But for now, I'm just going to pull all the plugs and pull the harness out. Got the pump out and the harness out. Now we're going to take the brake lines out, just because I don't want them in here. So there's that bolt, and then there's a bolt right down there that takes this block off right here, and then we have this front block that we have to take, so 1 bolt there. Okay, we're ready to pull the engine. Harness is out. ABS system is out. We've got a bolt here, and a bolt here. One here, one here, and one in there. We'll take those out and lower the engine down. Well, the engine's out. That pretty much wraps up this teardown for me. I'm going to put the wheels back on this to make it a roller. I have to take it to the DMV and get the VIN inspected. So there's all the parts. So if you like what you saw, like and subscribe, and I'll keep making more. Thanks.